The stars stretched like bright lines against the black canvas of space. The Korean Federation starship Baekdu moved smoothly through the endless darkness, its silver hull reflecting pinpricks of distant light. Captain Hyun Park stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. "Approaching unknown system," announced Kai, the ship's navigation officer. His fingers danced across holographic controls, plotting their course with practiced ease. Captain Park nodded. This wasn't just another routine exploration mission. The Korean Federation had been pushing deeper into unexplored space, mapping new star systems, and searching for potential contact points with alien civilizations. Suddenly, a massive shape emerged from the darkness. It was unlike any spacecraft they had encountered before. Sleek, curved, and colored in shades of deep purple and silver, the alien vessel moved with surprising grace. Its design suggested advanced technology far beyond current human capabilities. "Incoming transmission," reported Alina, the communications specialist. Her voice was calm, but a hint of excitement buzzed underneath. The view screen flickered. A strange creature appeared, something that looked like a mix between an octopus and a bird. Its skin changed colors slowly, from deep blue to soft green. Multiple eyes blinked in a strange rhythm, and tentacle-like appendages moved around what could be considered a head. "Greetings, humans of the Korean Federation starship," the creature spoke. Its voice sounded like wind passing through metal pipes. "I am Ambassador Vrlek of the Stellar Accord from the Rimward Confederation." Captain Park stepped forward. She wore a crisp navy blue uniform with silver trim, her posture straight and confident. "I am Captain Hyun Park. We come in peace and with curiosity about your civilization." Ambassador Vrlek's multiple eyes seemed to study her carefully. "We have heard interesting stories about human military practices. Our records suggest your species has unique approach to conflict and preparation." Something in the ambassador's tone made Captain Park raise an eyebrow. It wasn't quite a compliment, but not entirely an insult either. "We would like to observe," Vrlek continued, "a direct demonstration of human military training. 2. Understand your methods." Kai and Alina exchanged quick glances. An invitation like this was rare. Most alien civilizations were cautious about sharing military information. But humans, they often saw such encounters as opportunities. Captain Park's lips curved into a slight smile. "We can arrange that," she said simply. Little did the alien delegation know what they were about to witness. Human military training was nothing like they could ever imagine. Chaos and order would dance together in ways that would challenge everything they believed about warfare. The Baekdu continued its journey, carrying with it the promise of a demonstration that would change everything the Rimward Confederation thought they knew about humanity. Vulcan 9 military base looked like something from another world. Massive training grounds stretched across a landscape that could change in seconds. Giant holographic projectors stood like metal giants, ready to create entire battlefields out of thin air. Lieutenant Jae Kim walked across the main platform, his tablet displaying complex diagrams and training scenarios. Around him, soldiers moved with purpose. Some checked high-tech equipment. Others prepared massive transport vehicles that looked more like walking machines than simple trucks. "Exercise Delta 9 is about to begin," Jay announced into his communication device. His voice was calm but carried a sense of controlled energy. The alien delegation arrived moments later. Ambassador Vrlek and 3 other alien observers floated on anti-gravity platforms. Their eyes, multiple and constantly shifting color, watched everything with a mix of curiosity and mild superiority. "Your training ground looks chaotic," Vrlek commented to Captain Hyun Park, who stood nearby. The alien's tentacle-like appendages moved in what might have been a gesture of confusion. Captain Park simply smiled. "Chaos is often misunderstood," she replied. The base was a marvel of human engineering. Terrain could change in moments. Holographic enemies could appear from nowhere. Entire battle scenarios could be created and destroyed with the press of a button. It was a playground of military strategy, where technology and human creativity merged. Soldiers began to move. At first, it looked random. Vehicles rolled in different directions. Troops spread out in patterns that seemed to make no sense. To the alien observers, it looked like complete disorder. Lieutenant Ja Kim watched everything. His eyes tracked multiple screens, each showing different parts of the training ground. To an outsider, he looked calm. But his mind was processing hundreds of details every second. The first phase of the exercise began. Holographic terrain shifted. Mountains appeared where flat ground had been moments before. A simulated enemy base materialized in the distance. Smoke and dust began to fill the training ground. "Prepare for initial assault," Jay spoke into his communication device. His voice was steady, almost casual. The alien observers leaned forward. They expected to see a messy, uncoordinated attack. They expected to see weakness. They were about to be proven very wrong. Vehicles started moving. Troops began their approach. From above, massive drone swarms prepared to launch. The entire training ground began to move like a living, breathing organism. Chaos was about to show its true face. The exercise of Delta 9 was about to begin. The first moments of the exercise looked like pure madness. Soldiers ran in what seemed like random directions. Vehicles moved so fast, they kicked up massive clouds of dust and holographic debris. Aircraft twisted through the air in patterns that looked impossible. Ambassador Verlac's multiple eyes struggled to track everything happening on the training ground. Each alien observer had a recording device, but the devices seemed to be having trouble capturing the full scene. This is not a military exercise," Verlac muttered to his assistant. "This is complete disorder." On the observation platform, Lieutenant Ja Kim watched with a calm smile. Captain Hyun Park stood next to him, her arms crossed, completely relaxed. The holographic terrain changed again. What was once a flat area became a complex landscape of hills, valleys, and artificial obstacles. Soldiers who had looked lost moments before now moved with surprising speed and precision. A group of troops ran toward a simulated enemy position. From above, drone swarms began to move. They didn't fly in straight lines. Instead, they twisted and turned, creating patterns that looked more like a dance than a military movement. One of the alien observers leaned closer to their recording device. "Are they losing control?" he asked, confusion clear in his voice. But they weren't losing control. Not even close. A massive transport vehicle, looking more like a walking machine than a traditional truck, suddenly changed direction. It moved so quickly that the alien observers gasped. One moment it was heading east, the next it had completely reversed its course. Lieutenant Ja Kim's fingers moved across his control panel. To the aliens, it looked like he was playing a complex musical instrument. But each touch was sending signals, coordinating the entire exercise. Phase 2 beginning. Jay spoke into his communication device. His voice was calm, almost bored. The chaos increased. More vehicles joined the exercise. Troops that had been spread out now seemed to move with a strange connected purpose. From above, it might have looked like a swarm of insects, but each movement was calculated, each action precise. Ambassador Verlac felt something he hadn't expected. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was something closer to worry. "This is not what we were told about human military operations," he whispered to himself. The exercise continued, and with each passing moment, the line between chaos and control became more and more blurred. Something was happening here. Something the aliens did not understand. Something changed in the exercise. What looked like random movements suddenly made sense. Lieutenant Ja Kim's fingers danced across multiple screens. Each touch sent signals across the training ground. Soldiers who moments ago seemed lost now moved with perfect timing. Vehicles that appeared to be running wildly were actually creating a complex network of support and attack. "Communication network active," Jay spoke softly. His voice was steady, almost calm. The alien observers watched in growing disbelief. Ambassador Verlac's multiple eyes struggled to track everything happening. Their recording devices could barely capture the speed and complexity of human military coordination. A group of soldiers near a simulated enemy base moved in perfect sync. One team provided cover. Another team moved forward. A third team circled around, using the terrain in ways that seemed to defy normal military logic. How are they doing this? One alien observer whispered to another. Captain Hyun Park stood next to Lieutenant Jae Kim. She watched the exercise with a small smile. To her, this was normal. To the aliens, it was something close to magic. Suddenly, the entire training ground changed. Holographic terrain shifted. Mountains appeared where flat ground had been. Forests became open plains. Each change happened in seconds, but the human troops adapted instantly. A massive drone swarm launched from hidden positions. They didn't fly in straight lines. Instead, they moved like a living thing, changing direction faster than the alien computers could track. One moment they were a tight group. The next, they spread out like water across the landscape. Lieutenant Jae Kim touched another screen. Vehicles that looked like walking tanks moved into new positions. They weren't just moving. They were communicating. Each vehicle shared information with others, creating a living, breathing tactical network. Data transfer at 99.8% efficiency, a computer voice announced. The alien observers began to look worried. This wasn't the disorganized military they had been told about. This was something else entirely. A special forces team demonstrated the most shocking display yet. They took down a simulated enemy base in less than 3 minutes. Their movement was so fast, so precise, that the alien recording devices could barely capture what happened. Ambassador Verlac leaned forward. For the first time, he looked scared. "This is not chaos," he said quietly. "This is something else entirely." The human military exercise continued, and with each passing moment, the aliens realized they understood nothing about human warfare. The next phase of the exercise brought technology that made the aliens' jaws drop. Suddenly, the entire training ground erupted with devices that seemed to break the laws of physics. Soldiers pulled out small machines that could change shape and purpose in seconds. Drones that looked like metal insects swarmed across the landscape, moving with an intelligence that seemed almost alive. Lieutenant Jae Kim pressed a button. Thousands of tiny drones burst from hidden containers. They didn't fly in simple patterns. Instead, they moved like a living cloud, splitting and reforming faster than the eye could follow. "Adaptive swarm deployment," Jay announced calmly. Ambassador Verlac watched in total shock. The alien observers' recording devices began to malfunction. The technology was moving too fast, changing too quickly for their systems to process. A special forces team demonstrated something even more impressive. They used something called electromagnetic pulse weapons, devices that could shut down electronic systems in seconds. One moment, a simulated enemy base was fully operational. The next, it was completely disabled. Captain Hyun Park noticed the aliens' confusion. Their faces, if you could call them faces, showed a mix of fear and disbelief. The camouflage technology was perhaps the most shocking. Soldiers could become almost invisible. They blended into the landscape so perfectly that even the most advanced alien scanners would struggle to detect them. One soldier demonstrated by standing perfectly still. Holographic projectors around him shifted and changed. In seconds, he looked exactly like the surrounding terrain. Only a trained eye could see he was even there. Adaptive camouflage at 99.5% efficiency, a computer voice announced. A massive walking vehicle, part tank, part robot, moved across the training ground. It could change its shape to match different terrains. Wheels became legs. Armor shifted and changed. It moved like a living creature, not a machine. The alien observers began to whisper among themselves. Their earlier confidence was completely gone. Their technology, one alien said, "It's not just advanced. It's alive." Lieutenant Jae Kim heard the whisper. He allowed himself a small smile. A group of Special Forces soldiers took down a complex simulated enemy base. They used nothing more than improvised tactics and teamwork. No single piece of technology was special, but together they were unstoppable. Ambassador Verlac realized something terrifying. Human military power wasn't about the biggest weapon. It was about creativity, adaptation, the ability to turn anything into a weapon. The exercise continued, and the aliens watched in growing fear. Something broke inside Ambassador Verlac. The military exercise had become more than just a demonstration. It was a complete destruction of everything the aliens thought they knew about warfare. Their previous intelligence reports looked like children's drawings compared to this living, breathing system of combat. Lieutenant Jae Kim moved between screens, his fingers dancing across multiple control panels. Each touch sent waves of coordinated movement across the training ground. Soldiers and machines moved like they were part of one giant, thinking organism. Phase 6 initiating, Jay said quietly. The alien observers started to panic. Their recording devices had long since stopped working properly. Some of the devices were actually smoking, unable to process the speed and complexity of human military tactics. A holographic display showed how human units communicated. It wasn't just about sending messages. It was about sharing entire landscapes of information in split seconds. One soldier's view became everyone's view. One team's strategy became an instant network of action. Ambassador Verlac's multiple eyes darted everywhere. His tentacle-like appendages moved nervously. He was seeing something that challenged everything his civilization believed about military strategy. "This is impossible," he muttered. Captain Hyun Park stood nearby, watching the exercise with a calm expression. To her, this was just another day of training. To the aliens, it was a complete nightmare of military capability. The Special Forces team demonstrated something that made the aliens truly understand human potential. They took down a complex simulated enemy base using nothing more than creativity and teamwork. No single weapon was special, but together, they were unstoppable. A massive walking vehicle changed its shape mid-movement. Wheels became legs. Armor shifted. It moved like a living creature, adapting to the terrain faster than any machine should be able to move. "Adaptive response at maximum efficiency," a computer voice announced. The aliens realized something terrifying. Human military power wasn't about the biggest weapon. It was about something much more dangerous: creativity, adaptation, the ability to turn anything into a weapon. Ambassador Verlac's communication device blinked. He knew what he had to do. The report he would send back to his civilization would change everything they thought they knew about humans. "We were wrong," he whispered to himself. "We were so very wrong." The exercise continued, and the aliens watched in growing fear and respect. Chaos was not a weakness. For humans, chaos was the most powerful weapon of all. The exercise ended. Silence filled the training ground. Captain Hyun Park stepped forward. She looked calm, almost bored. Lieutenant Ja Kim stood beside her, his tablet still displaying complex tactical diagrams that seemed to move and breathe. "Would you like a detailed breakdown?" Jay asked the alien delegation. Ambassador Verlac looked shocked. His multiple eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme confusion among his species. The other alien observers said nothing. They looked like students who had just failed the most important test of their lives. The presentation began. Holographic displays covered every inch of the observation room. Each movement from the exercise was broken down into microscopic details. What had looked like chaos now revealed itself as a perfectly calculated dance of military strategy. Each seemingly random movement, Jay explained, was part of a larger strategy. The aliens watched in growing disbelief. The holographic displays showed how a single soldier's movement could trigger a chain reaction across the entire training ground. One action connected to hundreds of other actions. It was like watching a living organism think and move. A drone swarm that had looked completely random was actually a complex communication network. Vehicles that seemed to move wildly were creating defensive and offensive patterns faster than most computers could calculate. Adaptive response time, Jay said, pointing to a screen, is less than 0.03 seconds. The alien observers took notes. Their recording devices, which had earlier failed, now worked perfectly. But the information they were capturing was beyond anything they had ever seen. Captain Park stepped forward. "Chaos is not a weakness," she said simply. "It is our greatest strength." Ambassador Verlac tried to speak. His translator struggled to capture the mix of emotions: fear, respect, and complete shock. The most terrifying part for the aliens was the simplicity of it all. The humans weren't using super advanced weapons. They were using creativity, teamwork, the ability to turn anything into an advantage. One screen showed how a group of soldiers used simple tools in ways no military manual would ever describe. Another display showed vehicles moving in patterns that looked impossible. "This is how we train," Jay said. "This is how we fight." The alien delegation said nothing. They didn't need to. Everything they thought they knew about military strategy had just been destroyed. Chaos was not random. For humans, chaos was a weapon more powerful than any technology. The spaceship meeting room felt cold and tense. Ambassador Verlac sat at the center of a long table. His tentacle-like arms moved nervously. Behind him, other alien diplomats looked pale and worried. They had just watched something that changed everything they knew about human military capabilities. "We need to update our entire strategic report," Verlac said quietly. Captain Hyun Park and Lieutenant Jae Kim sat across from them. They looked calm, too calm, as if what they had just shown was nothing special. The diplomatic meeting was supposed to be a simple review. Now it had become something much bigger. The Rimward Confederation was about to completely change how they understood humans. "Your military training," one alien diplomat asked, "is this normal for all human forces?" Jae Kim smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that made the aliens feel very small. "This," he said, "was just a basic training exercise." The room went silent. Papers, or what passed for papers in alien technology, began to move. Diplomats started writing reports. Their communication devices worked overtime, sending information back to their home worlds. The most important report would come from Ambassador Verlac. His document would warn his entire civilization about humans. "Humans are not what our intelligence suggested," Verlac dictated into his recording device. "They are not a simple, linear military force. They are adaptive, creative. They turn chaos into a weapon." Each word was carefully chosen. Each sentence was a warning. The diplomatic consequences would be massive. The Rimward Confederation would need to completely rethink their approach to human interactions. What they thought was a weak species was actually something far more dangerous. Captain Park watched the aliens. She knew exactly what was happening. This was how humans had always survived. By being unexpected. By turning what others saw as weakness into the greatest possible strength. "We have more training exercises we could show you," she said casually. The aliens looked terrified. One small demonstration had changed everything. The universe was about to learn that humans were not a species to be underestimated. Chaos was not just a strategy for humans. Chaos was their language, their weapon, their way of life. 2 months after the training exercise, something unexpected happened. A new diplomatic ship arrived at the Korean Federation space station. It was different from other alien vessels. This one looked like it had been designed after careful study, after learning something important. Ambassador Verlac stood at the front of the delegation. He looked changed. His multiple eyes moved with a new kind of respect. No longer did he look down on humans. Now he looked curious. "We want to learn," Verlac said simply. Captain Hyun Park and Lieutenant Jae Kim listened carefully. The alien delegation had a very specific request. They wanted a cultural exchange program, but this was no ordinary exchange. They wanted to study human military strategy. Not just your weapons, Vrilok explained, but how you think, how you turn chaos into advantage. The meeting room became quiet. The aliens had traveled countless light years to understand something they had completely misunderstood before. They had seen chaos and realized it was something much more powerful. Lieutenant J. Kim smiled. It was a small smile, the kind of smile that said humans had known this all along. Chaos is not a mistake, Jay said. Chaos is a choice. The alien diplomats leaned forward. They were ready to listen. Their previous reports about humans, reports that suggested humans were a simple, linear species, were completely wrong. Humans didn't just fight. They transformed conflict. They turned unexpected movements into strategy. They made unpredictability into their greatest weapon. Captain Park looked at the aliens. "Are you ready to learn?" she asked. The aliens looked scared, but they also looked excited. The universe was about to get a lesson. Humans were not just another species. They were something else entirely. A civilization that could turn what others saw as weakness into the most powerful strength imaginable. Chaos was not just a word for humans. Chaos was their language, their art, their way of survival. And now, the entire universe would begin to understand.